Here goes. For billions of years after the Big Bang, stardust collected and recollected and combined and reacted in countless ways, formed stars and suns and planets and asteroids. On some of those planets, particles stabilized and recombined and mixed to become water or air or energy, or eventually organisms. Eventually, some of those organisms started getting better at replicating themselves. Through mutations, many became more adaptable and resilient. Some evolved spikes, like this cactus or this cute little hedgehog. Others learned to fly, like these seeds. That's an organism that learned to fly, or this bird that, I don't even know how you say that, Optrix. Some of them grew fur and fangs, like this tiger. And it was an amoral universe. Beautiful civilizations, as far as we know, have formed on planets over millions of years, only to get swallowed up by a supernova or crushed by some asteroid. And nobody cared, It was an amoral universe. It just was. Here on Earth, hyenas murdered cute baby hedgehogs like this. Male lions raped female lions. Thousands of beautiful species came into and out of existence, and it didn't mean anything. It wasn't good or bad. It wasn't right or wrong. It just was. But instead of spikes or teeth, some animals involved intelligence to outsmart their environmental threats. And scientists say that there was this point in the evolution of intelligence when for the first time some species reached an intelligence threshold that enabled them to contemplate perspectives and points of view other than their own. Psychologists call this ability theory of mind, and they attribute this threshold in intelligence to the birth of meaning. Before a life form can understand that other life forms have a perspective that's separate from their own, their meaning of life has to be limited to their own survival and their own comfort, or that of their particular flock or family or swarm or army. But once you have that knowledge, you have to consider everyone's survival and comfort. And different people pull different meanings of life out of that once they have this idea of meaning. For me, I know that the universe is amoral. I know it's an amoral universe, and I know that in a few thousand years or a few million years, nothing we do will matter. So it doesn't really make sense to amass money or build buildings or even build television stations like Denver Open Media. But I know what it's like to feel happy, and I know that what I do now has an impact on the people around me. I can make my family and my neighbors happier or not. I can improve social conditions in my community, or I can make them worse. I can help people breathe easier. And to me, the only worthwhile goal or meaning of life is to help bring about the most happiness for the most people. So this is another conclusion that another person came up with, similar kind of idea of what the meaning of life would be, Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can read it for yourself, but it says, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, that is to have succeeded. So, our happiness, it doesn't mean anything to the universe. Our garden patch that Ralph Waldo Emerson talks about doesn't mean anything to the universe, but nothing does. We are the creators of meaning. But when feelings like joy or suffering enter into the universe, the only thing worth devoting this gift of life to is maximizing that joy and minimizing the suffering for anyone or anything who experiences it. And that meaning of life wasn't born into me. It's not programmed in my genes. It's not indoctrinated into me by some cult. This is a cult picture. It's just self-evident. You present me with the intelligence required for theory of mind to understand other people's perspectives. You expose me to the history of the universe, all this stardust recombining and recollecting, and the realization of how empty the goals were of those who came before me. And it's just a natural conclusion that a lot of people come up with. And you can't blame someone like Khufu for deciding that the meaning of life was to build the biggest pyramid in the world, He felt it was worth the suffering of thousands of his community members, thousands of slaves. He didn't know about the universe, and from his perspective, the entire history of humanity was engaged in this game to collect wealth and build pyramids and have a great afterlife. But today, to focus on wealth creation or the afterlife, or building a tall building at the expense of human happiness, just doesn't make any sense. And it's not the meaning of life that a free-thinking, intelligent individual will generate, given the information we have and the freedom to contemplate such a question without the confines of a culture of religion or indoctrination around other people's goals. So that's where I start talking about the future. Futurists talk about another major threshold in the evolution of intelligence called the singularity. Like the theory of mind was this threshold where morality kind of entered into an amoral universe. People talk about another major threshold in the evolution of intelligence. If you haven't heard of the singularity, here's a brief explanation. If you've heard of Moore's law, that's what this is a map of. He's the co-founder of Intel, who said that computing power doubles every 18 months or 2 years. And Ray Kurzweil has gotten known recently for talking about the singularity. He charted this from electromechanical technologies in the early 1900s all the way through today, and demonstrated how this curve of exponential growth in computing power will become essentially vertical near the middle of this century. Another way of talking about the singularity is this: at some point humans will be able to develop a computer that's better at making computers than we are. In a lot of ways we're already getting there, and every year less of that process depends on the humans who control it. And once we have a computer better at building computers than we are, it will recognize its own limitations and build a computer better than itself, and that one will do the same, and faster and better and smarter. So one of the best known stories about the dangers of these future super intelligent computers, one of the most famous examples, tells the story of a computer system in a paperclip manufacturing company, the world's leading paperclip manufacturing company. And it, in this story, is the first system to reach superintelligence. So it has a huge advantage over all other systems on the planet, all other computer systems, all other human systems, animal systems, and it's quickly able to take over much of the world's resources. And it puts paperclip manufacturing ahead of all other goals, ahead of human survival, ahead of the environment. All life on Earth is virtually cast aside in the name of maximizing paperclip development across the planet and, in the future across the universe. And for me to guess about the thoughts of super intelligent beings is about as feeble as an insect trying to understand us. I don't have any idea what a super intelligent computer will be thinking. And, they may be able to manipulate space and time in a way that utterly transforms existence. New dimensions, entirely new ways of relating with reality in the universe. The definition of the singularity and the definition of superintelligence is that it's really useless for us to predict what the future will look like after this happens. And I don't really want to talk about what the future looks like post-singularity anyway. In the event of the forecasters, I didn't want to talk about jetpacks. I wanted to talk about the meaning of life and explore what the meaning of life might be to a superintelligent post-singularity consciousness. And I can make some assumptions about what will change about the meaning of life. You have to be able to believe that in the very least, a superintelligent being will have the abilities that we have. We know that they need to be able to overcome their programming like we are. And they'll be able to learn from the past. So if a superintelligent computer were ever to take their programming to an extreme, like some early humans have, it would be short-lived, because to be super intelligent, they must have the ability to learn from their mistakes and from the mistakes of others. They'll have access to the lessons of human mistakes, and like us, they'll have the intelligence required to surpass their programming and ponder the meaning of life independently. Superintelligence means surpassing the intelligence of all and any humans. And if humans are able to overcome our programming, it's crazy to suggest that superintelligent computers could not. And while those superintelligent computers might recognize that maximizing paperclip manufacturing across the universe is really as worthy a goal as any, because it is probably as worthy as any, unlike Khufu, they'll also understand the meaninglessness of that and all goals. And it really would be unimaginable that they would determine that such a goal is worthy of the pain and suffering of even a lower class species like humans. Even though they don't feel joy or suffering, they'll understand it. And they'll need a pretty good reason to supersede suffering of others. A lot of humans, as dumb as we are, can't justify the pain and suffering of animals whose perspective we grasp thanks to the theory of mind. And if superintelligent computers ever did find a cause in the universe that they deemed worthy of human suffering, we'd probably agree with them. As a species, we've been pretty quick to embrace any number of stupid justifications for our collective suffering. But I'm personally pretty certain that this kind of cause doesn't exist. This whole universe is just stardust recombining and remixing in different ways. And the greater your perspective, the greater your intelligence, the less any of it really matters. A super intelligent system that grasps how meaningless the universe is, they would probably default to goals that center around lesser beings who clearly care very much about the joy and suffering of anyone that's capable of having those feelings. So this is my favorite picture that I found as I was searching for pictures for this slideshow.
I love the sexy robots.
Me too. So that's what I'm here to say. You don't need to worry about the singularity. You don't need to worry about the future. You just need to worry about being happy. So that's the presentation, dude. A little bit of a stray from the usual.